During the summer, we were spoiled, okay? The Montreal Canadiens climbed all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, and yeah, you know the rest. This year, they managed to fall all the way back down to the bottom of the league standings. It's been a real stinker of a year. But there are quite a few guys that were a big part of the team last season and a big part of the playoff run who are no longer with us. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at 6 of these players. We'll look at their current stats, and then we're going to compare these stats to some of the guys on the Montreal Canadiens' current roster. And I know this is obviously subjective because they're playing on a different team. But still, alright, this is what we're doing. So get a hold of yourself. These are the 6 players that we're going to be taking a look at today, and as we're going through these, I'm going to talk about them in order, okay? Number 6 is going to be a guy that I consider not a big deal, and towards the end of the video, when we get into number 2 and number 1, yeah, these are players that I think are the biggest losses of all. Now, coming in at number 6, let's take a look at Erik Gustafsson. Remember Gus? Yeah, everybody remembers Gus. Not really. But Gus was actually a part of the playoff run, which saw the Habs squeak into the Stanley Cup Finals. He played 19 games during that run, and he had a goal and an assist to show for it. And Gus, you know, he was one of these players that was brought in for depth during the push towards the end of the season, and after the playoffs were over, it wasn't much of a surprise when the Canadiens and Gustafsson decided to part ways. I do think it was the right choice, and I don't really miss him, okay? Sorry, Gus, if you're listening, man, grab a tissue. It's okay. But this is why he happens to be number 6 on my list. The Chicago Blackhawks would bring Gus back into the organization. After all, I mean, the guy did have his best years as a member of the Blackhawks previously, so they were probably thinking, hey, maybe old Gus can rekindle some of that magic. And so far this year, he's got 14 points in 44 games. 2 goals, 12 assists, and yeah, while that doesn't really sound like a whole lot, when it comes to our own defense here in Montreal, wow, Gustafsson would be number 1 right now in the point department for the Habs defensemen. Alright, it's sick and a little sad, but it's true. Coming in at number 5, next up on the list, we got Tomas Tatar. When it was playoff time last year, the Habs decided, let's staple Tomas Tatar to the press box and really piss him off. Because he's not really been known to be, your typical playoff performer. I think this did really sour his relationship with the Habs, and both camps would decide to part ways during the offseason. Tatar is another one of these guys that I don't really miss. He did have some good years in Montreal, but I'm glad that the Habs decided to part ways with him. He's not really having a good year over in New Jersey. He's boasting just 17 points in 42 games, and he's only got 8 goals. Doesn't sound like much, right? It sounds statistically terrible for Mr. Tatar. But what do you know? Tatar would actually fit right in here amongst this Habs roster, and his current production would put him at 5th spot on the Canadiens roster for points, right in front of Big Josh Anderson. Number 4, let's get down and dirty with some Joe Dirt himself here. We got Jon Merrill. This guy made it to number 4, not only because he's having a good year, but because I miss the memes, okay? I do. I really do. I was sad to see him go. He did also play a sound defensive game, nothing too fancy, but he came to Montreal as advertised. He was good and he did his job. During the offseason, the Minnesota Wild would sign him, and bam, look at this. He's got 13 points in 39 games. He's having a bit of a career year over there in Minnie, and oh my god, look at this. Much like Gustafsson, Jon Merrill right now will be leading the Habs defensemen in points as well. What kind of a sick world is this anyway? He's also a plus 15 over there. Coming in at number 3, let's move on and take a look and see how Uncle Feldeneau is doing. He's actually not doing too bad at all, okay? He's got 12 goals, 13 assists, and 25 points in 45 games. Compared to the Habs' entire team, this would tie him for second on the Habs in points with Tyler Toffoli. He's also got more goals than any Hab, and yeah, Phillip Danault is definitely playing as advertised in LA right now. His point totals are around where they normally are. However, one category, okay, that he's definitely improved on over there in Los Angeles is his goal scoring. Check it out. It looks like Feldeneau may actually crack 20 goals this year for the very first time. Not too bad at all. Now, just to be clear, originally when Fel left, I wasn't really too shook about it. I thought he wanted a lot of money, and I was thinking, fine, go ahead, leave. The Habs will have Suzuki and Kotkaniemi as their 1-2 down the middle. Things are going to be good. But wow, has that ever changed? And not for the better at all. Next up, coming in at number 2, is a guy that we had for a grand total of 1 season. And the guy, for some reason, that I miss the most. I miss his presence on the ice. I miss his leadership. I miss the way he mentored the kids and how he actually stood up for his teammates. Unlike some people, huh? I'm talking about Corey Perry. The guy that wanted a 2-year contract, for some security for him and his family, but the Habs decided it was in their best interest to just push him to the side. I mean, what kind of a team is going to sign Corey Perry to a 2-year deal, right? Oh, the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's who. A team that just won back-to-back Stanley Cups is also the team that is interested in signing Corey Perry to a 2-year deal. Perry did have a bit of a rough start with the Lightning, but now he's already up to 12 goals and 11 assists, giving him 23 points in 46 games. From what I've heard, Perry spends most of his time on Tampa's 4th line, and somehow, when compared to the Habs roster, only Suzuki and Toffoli have more points than 36-year-old Perry. Not only that, but Perry also has 3 more goals than anyone on the Habs team. Let that sink in for a moment. We're 44 games into the year, and nobody on the Canadiens roster has found the back of the net 10 times. Jeez! Honestly, call me crazy, because I am. But I think that not signing Corey Perry was one of the dumbest moves during the offseason. Not only is he still a good player, but the leadership that this man provided. Man, nobody on the team right now even comes close to Corey Perry in terms of leadership. And the only reason right now why Corey Perry is not number 1 on my list is because I think number 1 could potentially sting the hearts of Habs fans for a longer period of time. So let's bring him in here. We're going to take a look at 21-year-old Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi was a former 3rd overall pick of the Montreal Canadiens back in 2018, and let's face it, we all had high hopes for Kotkaniemi. He was supposed to be the savior, okay? He was going to be a big part of the team in the future, right up until the Carolina Hurricanes swooped in, threw an offer sheet his way, and signed him up to a very lucrative 1-year deal. The Habs didn't match it, and boom, our 3rd overall pick was taken right out of the cradle. This year with the Hurricanes, Kotkaniemi has 9 goals and 11 assists, giving him 20 points in 42 games. Now, is his contract really worth that kind of production? Probably not. But that's not the point, because he still has a very high ceiling at just 21 years old. I think the Hurricanes are going to try and keep this guy long term. Right now, compared to the Habs roster, Kotkaniemi would be 3rd on the team in points alongside Jonathan Drouin. And of course, he would also be tied for the team lead in goals. This one could potentially hurt for a while, those greasy little bastards over there in Carolina. But hey, Bergevin did kind of start this whole thing anyway, right? When he threw an offer sheet at Sebastian Butthole. Anyway guys, that does it for this video. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Which player do you think is the biggest loss of all from last year to this year? If you enjoyed the video, consider slapping the piss out of the like button. And hey, I'll see you next time.